Long ago, in the Golden Kingdom of Egypt, Osiris reigned as a divine pharaoh. Beloved by gods and mortals, his rule was an age of prosperity and justice. Beside him was Isis, his wife, revered for her wisdom and magical abilities. Their love was deep, and together, they embodied harmony and balance. But in the shadows lurked Set, brother of Osiris, consumed by envy and lust for power. His heart harbored a dark grudge, fueled by each day Osiris sat on the throne. Set's ambition knew no bounds, and soon, he hatched a master plan to usurp the throne. Set organized a lavish banquet, inviting Osiris and other gods. During the feast, he unveiled a magnificent sarcophagus, promising to give it to whoever fits perfectly inside. One by one, the gods tried, but none fit. When Osiris' turn came, he lay in the coffin, discovering it was his perfect fit. At that moment, Set and his accomplices closed the coffin and threw it into the Nile. Isis, devastated by the loss of her husband, undertook a tireless search to find him. She scoured Egypt, picking up every piece of Osiris' body scattered by Set. With her spells and incantations, Isis reconstructed Osiris' body, temporarily reviving him. In their brief but loving union, they conceived a son, Horus. Born of magic and lamentation, Horus was more than just an heir. He was the avenger who would restore balance and bring justice to Set's treachery. In a hidden corner of the Nile Delta, Horus, son of Isis, grew up away from the world's prying eyes. This environment, full of reed beds and serene waters, served as a sanctuary, protecting the young god from the constant threat of Set. Here, surrounded by nature, Horus learned to walk and talk and, more crucially, understand his destiny. Knowing the hard road her son would have to travel, Isis dedicated herself to teaching him how to survive and the ancient traditions of wisdom and knowledge. As a goddess endowed with magical abilities, she shared with Horus the mysteries of divine power and ancient rituals. For her part, Hathor brought lessons of kindness and understanding, fundamental for a future ruler. Set's efforts to find Horus never ceased. He sent creatures and spies to search for him in the swamps, but they always failed before the cunning of Isis and Hathor. Their protection was like an invisible shield around his home. As time passed, Horus became more interested in the stories of Osiris, his father. He listened attentively to tales of his righteousness and goodness, and how Set had deceived and murdered him. These stories entrenched in Horus a strong sense of justice and a yearning to avenge his father. In addition to the teachings of Isis and Hathor, Horus was instructed in the arts of war. He mastered the bow, arrow, spear, shield, and combat tactics. Every day, his strength and skill grew, as did his desire to confront Set and regain the throne of Egypt. Despite the dangers, Horus' childhood was filled with moments of happiness and learning. The lesser gods of the swamp became his friends and companions. Through them, Horus learned to respect all the creatures of the Nile, understanding the value of every being in the natural world. Young and bold, Horus emerged not only as a formidable warrior but also as a figure of moral resistance against usurpation and tyranny. His challenge to Set was more than a personal vendetta. It was a crusade to restore his father's honor and justice to the kingdom. Each battle revealed more of his character, his courage, his wit, and his immense capacity for compassion, even in war. Horus could not tolerate the injustice that Set had committed against his father, Osiris, and decided to confront him to regain the throne of Egypt. Horus was young and brave but also reckless and proud. Set was old and cunning but also cruel and envious. Both were powerful and had many followers among the gods and men. Thus began a war that lasted 80 years and endangered the balance of the world. The first battle was in heaven, where Horus and Set were transformed into falcons and launched against each other. Horus had the advantage of speed and agility, but Set had the benefit of strength and experience. The two gods attacked each other with their nails, beaks, plucked feathers, and blood. The sky was filled with screams and wind, and the sun and moon were hidden by fear. In the end, Horus succeeded in wounding Set in the neck and made him fall to the earth. Horus felt victorious and went down to fetch the body of his enemy. But Seth had recovered and set a trap for Horus. As Horus approached, Seth jumped on him and gouged out one of his eyes, Horus' left eye, the eye of the moon. Horus screamed in pain and rage and fled from Seth. Seth kept the vision of Horus and broke it into 64 pieces, which he scattered throughout Egypt. The second battle was on Earth, where Horus and Seth were transformed into hippopotamuses and plunged into the river Nile. Horus wanted his eye back, and Seth wanted to kill Horus. The two gods bit and pushed each other and raised waves and foam. The river turned red, and the fish and plants suffocated. The men who lived near the river were frightened and asked the other gods for help. The other gods intervened and separated Horus and Seth. They asked them to cease their fighting and to seek a peaceful solution. Horus and Seth agreed and appeared before the tribunal of the gods, which was presided over by Ra, the sun god. The third battle was in the water, where Horus and Seth were transformed into lions and faced each other on an island. Horus wanted to prove his courage, and Seth wanted to use his advantage. The two gods roared, clawed at each other, and shook the land and sea. The island split in two, and the gods fell into the water. Seth transformed into a sea serpent and tried to drown Horus there. But Horus transformed himself into a falcon and soared into the sky. From there, he threw a metal spear, which pierced Seth's body. Seth writhed in pain and sank into the depths. Horus felt triumphant and returned to the court of the gods. But Seth had healed, and he set a trap for Horus. When Horus arrives, Seth accuses him of using illegal magic and asks the court to take his throne away. The court of the gods was hesitant and asked Horus to present proof of his innocence. The fourth battle was in the fire, where Horus and Seth were transformed into dragons and surrounded by flames. Horus wanted to prove his purity, and Seth wanted to consume his soul. The two gods spat fire at each other, bit each other's tails, and created a storm of ash and smoke. The fire spread throughout Egypt, and men and animals were burned. The gods were horrified and called for help from Osiris, the god of the dead. Osiris intervened and put out the fire. He then judged Horus and Seth and pronounced his verdict. Osiris declared Horus the rightful king of Egypt and condemned Seth to exile. Osiris also returned his left eye to Horus, which Thoth, the god of wisdom, had restored. Horus, grateful, offered his eye to Osiris as a gesture of respect and devotion. Osiris, moved, returned the eye to Horus, and gave him his blessing. Finally, exhausted and without a clear winner, Horus and Set took their dispute to the pantheon of the gods. Each god presented his case in a hall radiant with light and majesty. Horus spoke of his legitimate right and desire to avenge his father and restore order. Set, on the other hand, argued his strength and ability to rule. The gods listened attentively, weighing each argument. Thoth, the god of wisdom, questioned both opponents, seeking to discern the truth in their words. Mot, the goddess of justice and order, watched, ensuring the trial was conducted fairly. After lengthy deliberations and discussions, the gods finally made their decision. After defeating Seth, Horus was crowned the new king of Egypt and was revered as the god of heaven and kingship. Horus married the beautiful goddess Hathor, the goddess of love and beauty, and had several children with her, among them the 4 sons of Horus, the protectors of the organs of the dead. Horus was a good ruler who maintained peace and prosperity in the country and cared for his people's welfare. He was also a great warrior who defended Egypt from foreign invasions and expanded its borders. Horus was identified with the sun and depicted as a falcon or falcon-headed man wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. The double crown was a combination of the white crown of Upper Egypt, symbolizing purity and wisdom, and the red crown of Lower Egypt, representing power and life. Horus unified the two lands and established a dynasty that lasted more than 3,000 years. The pharaohs considered themselves to be the incarnation of Horus in life and Osiris in death. Therefore, the pharaohs built temples and pyramids to honor Horus and Osiris and to ensure their immortality. Horus was also related to other gods, such as Ra, the sun god, and Anubis, the god of mummification. Horus merged with Ra, forming the deity called Ra-Harajdi, which means Horus of the two horizons. Haraji was the god who traveled the sky in a solar boat and illuminated the world with his light. Horus was also associated with Anubis and formed the deity known as Horus Gentianujed, meaning Horus, the first of those who stand upon his mountain. Horus Gentianujed was the god who presided over the embalming process and guaranteed the preservation of the bodies of the deceased. Horus was one of Egyptian mythology's most essential and popular deities, and his cult spread throughout the Mediterranean and the Near East. Horus was worshipped in many temples and shrines, and numerous festivals and rituals were dedicated to him. Horus protected pharaohs, children, travelers, the sick, and the oppressed. Horus was the god who defeated evil and restored order, proved his courage and loyalty, and loved his father and wife.